Dear family of dreamers, beloved seekers of transformation, let me ask you something that will haunt you tonight. What if I told you that the difference between the life you're living right now and the life you've always dreamed of isn't 10 years away, isn't 5 years away, but could be decided in the next 12 months? What if 2026, this year that's just beginning, could be the turning point? The year you look back on and say, that's when everything changed. That's when I finally became who I was meant to be. Would you believe it? Or would you let this year slip away, like all the others, full of good intentions but empty of real transformation? Respected viewers, I've lived long enough to watch thousands of people approach New Year's with hope, with resolutions, with promises they make to themselves in moments of inspiration. And I've watched, with sadness, as 99% of those promises evaporate by February, not because people are lazy, not because they lack desire, but because they're focused on the wrong things. They focus on goals when they should focus on habits. They focus on outcomes when they should focus on systems. They focus on what they want to achieve when they should focus on who they need to become. Today, I'm going to share with you 7 habits, not goals, not resolutions. Habits that, if you adopt them, if you truly integrate them into your daily life, will make 2026 the year that changes everything. But I must warn you, these aren't easy habits. They're not comfortable. They won't give you instant gratification or make you feel good tomorrow. They require sacrifice. They require discipline. They require you to become someone different than who you are today. The question is, are you ready? Are you willing? Or will you nod along, feel inspired for a moment, and then return to exactly who you've always been? Only start every day by investing in your future self. Let me take you back to a morning many years ago. I knew a man, we'll call him David, successful on the surface, good job, nice house, respectable life. But David was trapped in a routine that was slowly killing his dreams. Every morning, he'd wake up to an alarm, hit snooze 3 times, finally drag himself out of bed, rush through a shower, grab coffee, fight traffic, arrive at work already exhausted. His mornings belonged to chaos, to reaction, to survival mode. And because his mornings were chaotic, his entire day followed suit. He was always behind, always catching up, always responding to other people's priorities instead of pursuing his own. Years passed like this, and David kept wondering, why isn't my life changing? Why am I stuck? Then one day, something shifted. David read something that stopped him cold. How you spend your morning determines how you spend your life. It was simple, almost too simple, but something about it pierced through his defenses. That night, David made a decision. He set his alarm for 5:30 a.m., an hour and a half earlier than usual. The next morning was brutal. His body screamed at him to stay in bed. Every fiber of his being wanted to hit snooze. But he got up, and instead of rushing, instead of reacting, he did something revolutionary. He invested in himself. He spent 30 minutes reading. Not news, not social media. Books about investing, about business, about wealth creation. He spent 30 minutes exercising. Nothing extreme, just movement, getting his blood flowing, waking his body up. He spent 30 minutes planning, reviewing his goals, visualizing his future, deciding his priorities for the day. 90 minutes. That's all. 90 minutes before the world had any claim on his attention. The first week was hard. His body fought him. His mind made excuses. But by week 2, something started to shift. He noticed he was calmer, more focused, more intentional about his day. By month 3, his entire life was different. He'd started a side business during those morning hours. He'd learned skills that were making him more valuable at work. He'd lost weight. He'd gained clarity. His income started to climb. His stress started to drop. His sense of purpose, it returned. All because he changed his mornings. This is habit number 1, and it's foundational to everything else we'll discuss. Because here's the truth. If you don't control your morning controls you. And if your morning controls you, your whole life controls you. Most people wake up and immediately give their attention to everyone else. Check their phone, read emails, scroll social media, consume news. They fill their mind with other people's priorities, other people's problems, other people's agendas. And then they wonder why they never have time for their own dreams. But the wealthy, the successful, the people who actually transform their lives, they do something different. They protect their mornings like sacred ground. They wake up early, not because they're masochists, but because early morning is the only time that's truly theirs. Before the demands start, before the interruptions begin, before the world wakes up and needs something from them. And in that quiet time, they invest in their future self. They read, they learn, they plan, they exercise, they meditate, they work on their side business. They develop their skills. While everyone else is sleeping, they're building. While everyone else is hitting snooze, they're growing. While everyone else is starting their day in reaction mode, they're starting with intention and power. I knew a woman, single mother, working 2 jobs, barely making ends meet. She heard about this concept and thought, I don't have time for this, I'm already exhausted. But something inside her said, try it anyway. So she started waking up at 5 a.m., before her kids, before work, before the chaos. She used that hour to learn digital marketing, something she'd always been curious about but never had time to pursue. 6 months later, she'd built a small freelance business, just a few clients, making an extra $1,000 a month. 1 year later, that side business was making $3,000 a month, enough to quit one of her jobs. 2 years later, she quit her second job. Her freelance business was generating $6,000 a month, more than she'd ever made working for someone else. And she built it all, 1 morning at a time, 1 hour at a time, before the sun came up and the world woke up. So here's what I'm asking you to do in 2026. Reclaim your mornings. Take them back from the chaos, from the distractions, from everyone else's priorities. Wake up 1 hour earlier, just 1 hour. I don't care if it's 5 a.m. or 7 a.m. or 9 a.m. Whatever is 1 hour earlier than you currently wake up, and use that hour only for yourself, for your growth, for your future. Read for 20 minutes. Books that educate you, that challenge you, that make you better. Exercise for 20 minutes. Move your body. Wake up your system. Build your physical foundation. Plan for 20 minutes. Review your goals. Decide your priorities. Visualize who you're becoming. That's it. 1 hour, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. Do you know what that gives you? 365 hours. That's over 45 8-hour workdays of pure investment in yourself. Most people don't invest 45 hours in themselves over an entire year. You'll do it in your mornings alone. And here's what happens when you do this consistently. Your life doesn't change overnight, but it changes every night, slowly, gradually, inevitably. 6 months from now, you'll have read 18 books. You'll be in better shape. You'll have clarity about your direction. You'll have made progress on projects you've been putting off for years. 1 year from now, you won't recognize yourself, your knowledge, your skills, your confidence, your results. All because you changed one thing, your morning. This is habit number 1. Master it, and everything else becomes easier. That's where transformation begins. Hu habit nam BRTWO. Track every dollar like your freedom depends on it. Now, let me tell you about a couple I once knew. Good people, both working. Combined income of $90,000 a year. Not wealthy, but comfortable, or so they thought. But they had a problem. Every month they'd get to the end and wonder, where did it all go? We make good money. Why are we always broke? They weren't living extravagantly. No luxury cars, no exotic vacations, just normal life. But their money disappeared like water through their fingers, and they had no idea where it was going. I sat down with them one evening, asked a simple question. How much did you spend on food last month? They looked at each other, guessed, maybe $600. How much on entertainment? Another guess, $200. How much on random Amazon purchases? Blank stares. We don't know. Exactly, I said. You don't know. Because you don't know, you can't control it. You're flying blind with your financial life. I gave them an assignment for 1 month. Track every single dollar, every coffee, every lunch, every impulse purchase, every subscription, everything. They resisted at first. That sounds tedious, restrictive. We don't want to be those people who obsess over every penny. Just try it, I said. 1 month, then we'll talk. 30 days later, they came back to me, and they were as shaken. We spent $1,200 on food, they said, not $600. We're eating out way more than we realized. We spent $400 on subscriptions we barely use. Streaming services, apps, memberships we forgot we had. We spent $800 on random stuff. Things we didn't need. things we barely remember buying. They'd found over $2,000 per month just vanishing. Money they were earning, but not enjoying, not investing, not even remembering. It was just gone. This is habit number 2. And it's the habit most people refuse to adopt because it makes them uncomfortable. Because tracking your spending forces you to confront the truth about your priorities, your impulses, your lack of control. Most people would rather stay blind, rather pretend they're doing fine, rather avoid the discomfort of seeing where their money actually goes. But blindness is expensive. Blindness keeps you broke. Blindness ensures you'll work until you're 70 because you never took control. Here's what happens when you track every dollar. First, you become aware. You can't change what you can't see. But once you see it, once you're confronted with the reality of your spending, you can't unsee it. That $4 coffee every morning, you suddenly realize that's $1,460 a year, invested at 7%. That's $30,000 in 20 years. Every coffee is a choice. Buy it today, or have $30,000 in retirement. That's not about deprivation, it's about awareness, about making conscious choices instead of unconscious habits. Second, you gain control. When you know where every dollar goes, you can redirect it. You can cut the waste. You can eliminate the subscriptions you don't use. You can stop the bleeding. And suddenly, you find money that was always there, but was leaking out through 1,000 small holes. Third, you build wealth, because every dollar you save from wasteful spending is a dollar you can invest, a dollar that can compound, a dollar that can work for you instead of disappearing. 2, that couple I told you about, they started tracking. They cut their wasteful spending. They found $2,000 a month. They didn't deprive themselves. They still enjoyed life, but they eliminated the unconscious waste, the things they were spending on without even realizing it. And they invested that $2,000 every single month. 5 years later, they had over $140,000 invested, plus growth. Their portfolio was worth over $170,000 from money that was just disappearing before, money they didn't even miss once they stopped wasting it. 10 years from now, that will be $500,000 from money they were already earning but not controlling. So here's your assignment for 2026. For the next 90 days, minimum, track every single dollar you spend. I don't care how you do it. App, spreadsheet, notebook, whatever works. But write it down. Every single dollar at the end of each week. Review it. Look at where your money went. Ask yourself, did this spending align with my values, with my goals, with the life I'm trying to build? At the end of each month, categorize it. How much on needs? How much on wants? How much on waste? And then make adjustments. Cut the waste. Redirect that money. Invest it. Save it. Use it intentionally. I promise you, this one habit will reveal hundreds, maybe thousands, of dollars that are currently disappearing. And when you redirect that money, when you invest it instead of waste it, your entire financial future changes. This isn't about being cheap. It's about being conscious. It's about taking control. It's about making sure that every dollar you earn is working for your future, not against it. That's habit number 2. Surround yourself with people who elevate you. Let me tell you a story that might sting a little. There was a man, let's call him Michael. Smart guy, ambitious, had dreams of building wealth, starting a business, creating something meaningful. But Michael had a problem. His friends, every Friday night they'd go out, expensive dinners, bars, clubs, spending hundreds of dollars without thinking about it. Every weekend they'd talk about the same things, sports, TV shows, office gossip, complaining about their jobs but doing nothing to change. Michael would try to talk about his business ideas, his investment strategies, his goals, and his friends would mock him. Look at Mr. Big Shot over here. Too good for us now. Or they'd discourage him. Business is risky. You could lose everything. Just be happy with your job. Or they'd change the subject. Uninterested. Dismissive. For years, Michael stayed in this circle because they were his friends, because he'd known them forever, because leaving felt like betrayal. But slowly he noticed something. His dreams were shrinking. His ambitions were fading. His discipline was weakening. He'd start the week motivated, ready to work on his business, ready to invest, ready to grow. But by Friday, after a week of negative conversations, of discouragement, of peer pressure to just relax and enjoy life. He'd give in, spend money he shouldn't spend, waste time he couldn't afford to waste, return to patterns that kept him stuck. And Monday would come around and he'd feel guilty, frustrated, disappointed in himself. The cycle repeated year after year, and Michael stayed exactly where he was. Then one day, Michael met someone at a networking event, an entrepreneur, someone who'd built what Michael was trying to build. They talked for 2 hours, and for the first time in years, Michael felt understood. This person didn't mock his dreams, didn't discourage his ambitions, didn't change the subject when he talked about growth. Instead, they challenged him, pushed him, shared strategies, offered to introduce him to others who were on similar paths. Michael went home that night and realized something painful. His friends weren't actually friends. They were as anchors, holding him in place, keeping him comfortable, preventing him from rising. So Michael made a hard decision. He started spending less time with the old group, started seeking out new circles, people who were building, growing, investing in themselves. At first, his old friends were offended. You think you're better than us now. And it hurt. It was lonely. It felt like loss. But within 6 months, Michael's life was unrecognizable. The new people he surrounded himself with, they held him accountable. They shared opportunities. They expected excellence. His business launched. His income doubled. His mindset transformed, not because he became smarter, but because he changed his environment. This is habit number 3. And it's the most emotionally difficult habit on this list, because it requires you to evaluate your relationships, to be honest about who's lifting you up and who's pulling you down. And sometimes you'll discover that people you love, people you've known for years, are as toxic to your growth, not because they're bad people, but because they're comfortable where they are, and your growth threatens their comfort. When you start waking up early, they mock you for being too serious. When you start investing, they say you're wasting money on a rigged system. When you start building a business, they remind you of everyone who's failed. They're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to keep you wherever they are, because your growth makes them confront their own stagnation. Here's the brutal truth. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Look at your 5 closest relationships right now. Their average income, their average ambition, their average habits, their average mindset. That's your trajectory. That's who you're becoming. If they're all broke, you'll stay broke. If they're all comfortable with mediocrity, you'll never achieve excellence. If they're all complainers who take no action, you'll complain and take no action. Not because you're not capable, but because an environment shapes behavior. So in 2026, you need to make some hard choices. First, audit your relationships. Who energizes you? Who drains you? Who challenges you to grow? Who keeps you comfortable in your stagnation? Be honest. Brutally honest. Second, reduce time with the anchors. You don't have to cut them off completely, but you can't let them dominate your time and influence. Create distance. Set boundaries. Protect your energy. Third, actively seek out elevators. People who are where you want to be. People who have done what you're trying to do. People who expect more from you than you expect from yourself. Join groups. Attend events. Network intentionally. Put yourself in rooms where you're the least successful person there. It will be uncomfortable. You might feel like you don't belong, like you're out of your league. Good. That discomfort is growth. That's what rising feels like. I've watched this pattern play out hundreds of times. The person who changes their circle changes their life. The person who stays in the same circle stays in the same life. It's that simple, that predictable, that powerful. Your network is your net worth. Your environment is your destiny. Choose wisely. That's habit number 3. For you. Do the hard thing first every single day now. Let me tell you about a lesson I learned from watching someone struggle for years, until one simple shift changed everything. Her name was Lisa. Talented writer. Dreamed of publishing a book. Had the skill. Had the stories. Had everything she needed. Except one thing she couldn't finish. Every day, she'd wake up with good intentions. Today I'll write, she'd tell herself. Today I'll make real progress. But then, life would happen. She'd check her email, just for a few minutes. But those minutes became an hour, responding, putting out fires, dealing with other people's urgencies. She'd scroll social media, just to wake up her brain. But 30 minutes would vanish. She'd do household chores. I need a clean space to write, she'd rationalize. But by the time the house was clean, she was tired. She'd run errands, pay bills, make calls, do all the easy, comfortable, mindless tasks that felt like productivity, but weren't actually moving her toward her dream. And by the time evening came, when she finally sat down to write, she was exhausted. Her creative energy was gone. Her focus was shattered. Her motivation had evaporated. She'd type a few sentences, feel frustrated, give up, promise herself she'd do better tomorrow. Tomorrow came. The pattern repeated. Years passed like this. The book remained unfinished. The dream stayed a dream. Then one day, someone gave her advice that sounded almost too simple to work. Do the hard thing first. That's it. 5 words. Lisa was skeptical, but she was also desperate, so she tried it. The next morning she woke up, and before checking email, before looking at her phone, before doing anything else, she wrote, just 30 minutes, on the book, the hard thing, the thing she'd been avoiding, the thing that required real focus and creativity and courage. The first morning was brutal. Her brain screamed for distraction. Every excuse surfaced. Just check email first. Just see what's happening in the world. But she resisted. She wrote 30 minutes, then stopped. And something miraculous happened. The rest of her day was different. She felt accomplished, energized, like she'd already won before most people were awake. The emails, she handled them quickly. They didn't consume her energy anymore because she'd already done the important thing. The chores, she did them efficiently because they were now the break from the hard work, not the excuse to avoid it. 6 months later, Lisa's book was finished. 6 months. After years of false starts and abandoned attempts, same person, same talent, same 24 hours in a day. The only difference, she did the hard thing first. This is habit number 4. And it's the habit that creates our momentum. Because here's what most people don't understand about willpower and discipline. They're as finite resources. You don't have unlimited amounts. You wake up with a tank of willpower. And every decision, every distraction, every temptation drains that tank. By noon, your tank is half empty. By evening, you're running on fumes. And then you wonder why you can't do the hard thing. Why you can't focus. Why you can't follow through. It's because you've already spent your willpower on 1,000 small, meaningless decisions and distractions. But the successful people, the ones who actually achieve their goals, they understand this. They know their willpower is strongest in the morning. Their focus is sharpest. Their discipline is highest. So they use that time, that precious window of peak mental energy, on the same most important thing. Not the urgent thing, not the easy thing, not the comfortable thing, this important thing. The thing that actually moves them toward their goals. For a writer, that's writing. For an entrepreneur, that's building the business. For an investor, that's researching and analyzing opportunities. For someone trying to get fit, that's exercising. Whatever your hard thing is, whatever you've been putting off, whatever requires your best energy and deepest focus, that's what you do first, before anything else, before the world makes demands, before your energy depletes. I knew a man who wanted to transition careers. He was stuck in a job he hated, but needed skills for the career he wanted. Every night he'd come home exhausted, tell himself he'd study, learn, build his portfolio. But he never did. He was too tired, too drained, too depleted from giving his best energy to a job that didn't serve his future. Years passed, the transition never happened. Then he made one change. He started waking up 90 minutes early, and in those 90 minutes before work, he studied. Was it hard? Absolutely. Was he tired? Every morning. But he did it anyway. 6 months later, he had the skills. 9 months later, he had the portfolio. 1 year later, he had the new job, the job he'd been trying to get for 5 years. He got in 12 months, just by doing the hard thing first. So here's what I need you to understand about 2026. Every day you have one hard thing. One thing that if you did it consistently, would transform your life. For most people, that thing never gets done because they save it for when they have time or when they feel motivated or when conditions are perfect. But that time never comes. That motivation never arrives. Those conditions never align. Meanwhile, their life stays the same year after year because the hard thing, the important thing, never gets done. Here's your challenge. Identify your hard thing. The one activity that if you did it every single day for a year, would completely change your trajectory. Maybe it's working on your business for 1 hour before your day job. Maybe it's studying to gain new skills that will double your income. Maybe it's exercising to build the health and energy that everything else requires. Maybe it's calling potential clients to grow your revenue. Maybe it's writing to build the authority and audience that opens doors. Whatever it is, you know what it is. You've known for a long time. You've just been avoiding it. 2. Starting tomorrow, do that thing first. Before email, before news, before social media, before breakfast if necessary. Wake up, do the hard thing, then, and only then. Allow yourself to do everything else. Will it be uncomfortable? Yes. Will you want to quit? Absolutely. Will your brain invent 1,000 reasons why today should be different? Every single day. Do it anyway. Because here's the truth. Doing the hard thing first creates a cascade of positive momentum. You start your day with a win. That win builds confidence. That confidence makes everything else easier. But avoiding the hard thing creates a cascade of negative momentum. You start your day already behind, already defeated, already compromising on what matters most. And that pattern, repeated daily, determines everything about your year. Choose momentum over comfort. Choose progress over ease. Choose the hard thing first. That's habit number 4. How might invest before you spend every single time? Now let me share something that most people fundamentally misunderstand about wealth building. They think the formula is earn money, pay bills, spend on life. If there's anything left, then maybe invest. But here's why most people never build wealth. There's never anything left. Expenses expand to consume income. It's called Parkinson's Law. And it's why people making $50,000 and people making $200,000 often feel equally broke, because they both spend everything they earn. Let me tell you about 2 people. Same age, same income, $60,000 a year. Person A follows the conventional wisdom. Earn, pay bills, spend, save whatever's left. At the end of each month, after rent, car payment, food, entertainment, random purchases, there's maybe $200 left. Sometimes less, sometimes nothing. They intend to invest it. But then something comes up, car repair, birthday gift, small emergency, and the money disappears. Years pass. Their income grows to $70,000, then $80,000, but their savings still basically zero because their spending grew too. Person B does something different, something radical. On payday, before anything else, they invest 15%. That's $900 per month. They set up an automatic transfer. The money disappears into their investment account before they even see it, before they can spend it, before they can make excuses. And then, and only then, they live on what's left. At first, it's tight, really tight. They have to budget carefully. They have to say no to things. They have to be creative and disciplined. But something interesting happens. They adjust. They find ways to live on the remaining money. They cut waste they didn't even know existed. They prioritize differently. And the investment account, it grows every month without fail, regardless of circumstances. 5 years pass. Person A has maybe $5,000 saved. Had a few good months, had a few setbacks. Never built real momentum. Person B has invested $54,000. But with market growth, their account is worth $65,000. They've built a real wealth, not because they earned more, but because they invested first. 10 years pass. Person A is still starting over, still promising to get serious about saving, still broke despite earning more than ever. Person B has invested $108,000 with compounding. Their account is worth over $150,000. They're not rich yet, but they're wealthy. They have options. They have momentum. They have a foundation that can't be shaken. 20 years pass. Person A is panicking about retirement, realizing they've wasted 2 decades, wishing they'd started earlier, feeling trapped. Person B, they're financially independent. Their investments are worth over $500,000, growing faster than they're contributing, creating passive income that could cover their expenses if they wanted. Same income, same opportunities, completely different outcomes. The difference. Person B invested before they spent every single time. This is habit number 5. And it's the habit that creates certainty in wealth building. Because when you invest first, investment becomes non-negotiable. It's not dependent on having a good month. It's not dependent on feeling motivated. It's not dependent on having money left over. It happens every time, automatically, before you can sabotage yourself. Here's what I see constantly. People say they can't afford to invest. They're living paycheck to paycheck. There's no room in the budget. But then I look at their spending, and I see subscriptions they don't use, restaurants they don't need, purchases they don't remember, waste everywhere. The truth, they just can't afford to invest. They're just prioritizing spending over investing, and that priority determines whether they build wealth or stay broke. I knew a young couple, combined income of $75,000, claiming they couldn't afford to invest. I challenged them. Start with just 10%, $565 a month. Before anything else, they resisted. We can't. We're already struggling. Try it for 3 months, I said. If you literally cannot survive, we'll adjust. But I think you'll find a way. They agreed, set up the automatic investment. The first month was hard. They had to cut back, skip some luxuries, be more intentional. But they survived. And something shifted. They realized how much they'd been wasting, how many expenses were habits, not needs, how much fat existed in their budget. By month 3, it felt normal. They didn't even miss the money, because they never saw it. They'd adjusted their lifestyle around what was left. 5 years later, they had $45,000 invested, plus growth, nearly $60,000 total, from money they claimed they didn't have. So here's what you're going to do in 2026. Decide on a percentage. I recommend 15% if you can manage it, but even 10%, even 5% if you're really tight, is infinitely better than zero. Calculate what that means in dollars. If you make $4,000 a month, 15% is $600. Set up an automatic transfer on payday from checking to investment account before you pay bills, before you do anything. And this is crucial. Forget about it. Don't track it daily. Don't obsess over it. Just let it grow and live on what's left. Budget, adjust, sacrifice if needed, but make the investment non-negotiable. Here's what will happen. Month 1, you'll feel it. It'll be uncomfortable. You'll question whether you can do this. Month 3, you'll adjust. You'll find ways. You'll discover you needed less than you thought. Month 6, it'll feel normal. You won't even miss that money because you never counted on it. Year 1, you'll have invested over $7,000. Your account will be worth maybe $8,000 with growth, real money, real progress. Year 5, you'll have over $50,000, maybe more. Momentum building, compound interest working. Year 10, you'll cross 6 figures, and the growth will start to outpace your contributions. The snowball will be rolling downhill. But only if you start, only if you invest first, only if you make it non-negotiable. Because wealth building doesn't happen with leftover money. Leftover money doesn't exist. Wealth building happens when you prioritize it, when you pay yourself first, when you invest before you spend. That's habit number 5. Habit IT number 6. Read for 30 minutes every day. Let me tell you about the difference between 2 men I observed over many years. Both started with similar backgrounds, similar education, similar intelligence. One became extraordinarily successful, wealthy, respected, fulfilled. The other stayed average, comfortable but never thriving, always wondering why success eluded him. The difference, one simple habit. The successful man read for 30 minutes every single day. Books about business, investing, psychology, leader strategy. The average man watched TV for 3 hours every single day. Sports, news shows he barely remembered watching. Over 1 year, the reader consumed 12 to 15 books, gained knowledge from dozens of experts, absorbed wisdom that took lifetimes to accumulate. The TV watcher consumed nothing, just mindless entertainment. Forgotten by morning. Over 5 years, the reader had absorbed 60 to 75 books. His knowledge base was vast. His understanding was deep. His decision-making was informed by principles and patterns he'd learned. The TV watcher, same knowledge he had 5 years ago, maybe less, because he'd filled his mind with noise instead of wisdom. Over 20 years, the reader had consumed nearly 300 books. He'd essentially gotten 300 mentors, 300 different perspectives, 300 lifetimes of experience, downloaded into his mind, and his life reflected it. Better decisions, better opportunities, better results. The TV watcher, still the same, still complaining about the same problems, still making the same mistakes, still wondering why life wasn't working out. This is habit number 6, and it's the habit that creates a leveragey. Because here's what reading does. It compresses time. You can learn in 30 minutes what took someone 30 years to discover through trial and error. You can avoid mistakes that cost others fortunes. You can adopt strategies that created massive success. You can stand on the shoulders of giants instead of starting from scratch. I meet people all the time who say, I don't have time to read. But then I watch them, and they have 3 hours for Netflix, 2 hours for social media, an hour for news. They don't lack time, they lack a priority. Because here's the truth. Reading isn't about having time. It's about making time. It's about choosing wisdom over entertainment, growth over comfort, investment over consumption. Let me give you a practical example. A man wanted to start investing in real estate, had no experience, no knowledge, felt overwhelmed and scared. He could have stayed paralyzed, or hired an expensive mentor, or jumped in blindly and made costly mistakes. Instead, he read 30 minutes per day, books about real estate investing, case studies, strategy mistakes to avoid. After 6 months, 12 books. He knew more than 95% of people who own real estate because he'd learned from dozens of successful investors. He bought his first property, applied the strategies he'd read, avoided the common pitfalls, made smart decisions. That property generated positive cash flow from day one because he was operating from knowledge, not guessing. Over the next 5 years, he bought 6 more properties, each one more successful than the last, because he kept reading, kept learning, kept growing. The 30 minutes per day led to financial freedom, led to passive income, led to a completely transformed life. Now imagine if he'd spent those 30 minutes on social media instead, on TV, on mindless scrolling. He'd be exactly where he started. Same job, same income, same regrets. The time would have passed anyway, but he'd have nothing to show for it. So here's what I'm asking you to commit to in 2026. 30 minutes every single day of reading something that makes you better. Not fiction, not entertainment, not escapism. Books about money, business, investing, psychology, leadership, skills you need, problems you're facing, goals you're pursuing. If you make $60,000 per year, read books about people who've built $1,000,000 net worths. Learn how they think, what they did, what mistakes they avoided. If you're building a business, read about successful entrepreneurs. Study their strategies, understand their failures, model their wisdom. If you want financial freedom, read about investing, compound interest, tax strategy, asset allocation. 30 minutes per day equals 3.5 hours per week. That's nearly 1 full book every 2 weeks, 25 books per year. Do you understand what that means? In 1 year, you'll have 25 mentors, 25 different perspectives, 25 lifetimes worth of wisdom. In 5 years, 125 books. You'll know more about wealth creation than most millionaires. In 10 years, 250 books. You'll be in the top 1% of knowledgeable people in any field you choose to study. And here's the beautiful part. Books are the cheapest education on earth. $20 gets you everything someone learned in a lifetime, everything they're willing to share, everything that made them successful. You're essentially buying decades of experience for the price of lunch. Show me a better investment than that. But you have to be consistent. You can't read when you feel like it or when you have time. You have to make it a habit, non-negotiable, like brushing your teeth. Wake up. Read for 30 minutes before the day takes over, before the excuses start, or before bed. Wind down with wisdom instead of screens. Just make it happen. Every day, no exceptions. I promise you, this one habit will create more wealth than almost anything else you do, because knowledge compounds, just like money. Each book builds on the last. Each insight connects to previous insights. Each piece of wisdom makes you better at acquiring more wisdom. And over time, you become someone different. Someone who sees opportunities others miss. Someone who makes decisions others can't make. Someone who achieves results others only dream about. All because you read for 30 minutes a day. That's habit number 6. Tu ahibit nummbr seven. Review your progress weekly, your vision monthly. Now we arrive at the final habit. The habit that ties everything else together. The habit that ensures you don't just start strong, but finish strong. Let me tell you about a mistake I see constantly. People set goals in January. They're excited, motivated, committed. They work hard for a few weeks, maybe even a few months. But then life happens. They get busy. They get distracted. They drift. And by December, they've completely forgotten what they were trying to achieve. The year just happened to them. Instead of them happening to the year, they look back and wonder, where did the time go? Why didn't I make progress? And the answer is always the same. They never reviewed. They never checked in with themselves. They never course corrected. They set the destination, but never checked if they were still heading in the right direction. I knew an entrepreneur, talented, hardworking, set ambitious goals every year, but every year, disappointing progress. Goals mostly unmet. Frustrated with himself, I asked him, "How often do you review your goals?" He looked confused. "I set them in January. But how often do you review them? Check your progress, adjust your approach?" Silence. "Never," he finally admitted. "I set them and then just try to remember them throughout the year." I gave him a new system, simple. 2 types of reviews. Every Sunday evening, 30 minutes. Review the week. What worked? What didn't? What needs to change next week? Every month, 1 hour. Review progress toward annual goals. Celebrate wins. Analyze failures. Adjust strategy. That's it. 90 minutes per month to ensure alignment, to maintain focus, to course correct before drift becomes disaster. Within 6 months, his business was transformed, not because he worked harder, but because he was working on the right things. The weekly reviews caught problems early. Before they became crises, they revealed patterns. What was working? What was wasting time? The monthly reviews kept the big picture clear, reminded him why he was doing this, adjusted tactics while keeping strategy intact. By year end, he'd achieved more than any previous year because he'd stayed aligned, stayed focused, stayed intentional. This is habit number 7, and it's what prevents you from waking up at the end of 2026, wondering where the year went. Because here's the thing about time. It passes whether you're paying attention or not. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Months become years. And if you're not deliberately directing your time, it will be consumed by whatever's urgent, whatever's loud, whatever's in front of you. But urgent doesn't mean important. Loud doesn't mean meaningful. And what's in front of you might be taking you away from where you want to go. The weekly review catches this. It forces you to pause, to reflect, to ask, did this week move me closer to my goals? Or did I just stay busy? What did I do that actually mattered? What was just activity? What's working that I should do more of? What's not working that I should stop? What adjustments do I need to make next week? It's uncomfortable because it forces honesty, forces you to confront wasted time, wasted energy, wasted opportunities. But that discomfort is what creates change, what keeps you accountable to yourself. The monthly review does something different. It zooms out, shows you patterns you can't see day to day. Am I actually making progress toward my annual goals, or just trading water? Have my priorities shifted? Do I need to adjust my goals? What obstacles keep appearing? How do I solve them once, instead of dealing with them monthly? What am I learning about myself, about what works for me? It's the difference between driving cross-country with your eyes on the road and occasionally pulling over to check the map. Both are necessary, the daily focus and the periodic perspective. I've done this for decades, every Sunday evening, every month end, and I can tell you, it's the reason I've achieved what I've achieved. Not because I'm smarter, not because I work harder, but because I review, I course correct, I stay aligned, I catch problems when they're small, I recognize patterns early, I adjust before drift becomes disaster. So here's what you're going to do in 2026. Every Sunday evening, 30 minutes, review your week. Write down 3 wins from this week, 3 lessons learned, 3 priorities for next week. That's it. Simple, but powerful every month. Last Sunday, 1 hour. Review your progress. Check each major goal. Rate your progress 1 to 10. Identify obstacles. Adjust your approach. Celebrate what's working. Be honest about what's not. Make decisions about changes needed. And here's what will happen. You'll stay aligned. You'll maintain focus. You'll catch drift before it becomes disaster. You'll see patterns others miss. You'll adjust faster. You'll waste less time on what doesn't work. And by December 2026, when everyone else is wondering where the year went, you'll know exactly where it went, because you were conscious every step of the way. You'll have made real progress, become a genuinely different person, not by accident, not by luck, but by design, because you reviewed, you adjusted, you stayed intentional. That's habit number 7.